Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video, and in this video we are going to be going over 4 cameras that are all roughly within $175 of each other. We're going to go over the pros and cons of each one, and I'm making this video to kind of guide the average budget hobbyist towards a direction, not necessarily even towards one of these cameras, just towards a direction. And so with the beginning of this video here, we're going to be going over the models of cameras, what they typically range for in price, as well as what type of sensor they have. So starting off here with the cheapest one, the Canon t5i. This is a DSLR. They don't make these anymore. It has an 18 megapixel APS-C sensor, so it's a little bit smaller than a full frame sensor. Moving on here, we have the 7D Mark II. This is a 20 megapixel APS-C sensor, so you have 2 more megapixels. Moving over to this one, these ones typically range anywhere between 350 to 450-ish bucks. Sometimes a little more depending on the condition. This one is also weather sealed, as we can tell by the single number and then the D. This is a Mark II, the version 2 of the 7D series. And we can see here on this one that it's not weather sealed or anything like that, but it does give you an articulating screen, which, depending on what you're doing, can definitely be nice for a camera like this. Up here we have the 5D Mark III. These range anywhere between $300 in working poor condition to $450, $475 in pretty much perfect condition. These run all over the place. It is a 22 megapixel full frame sensor. The 5D, the 6D is actually when you get to the budget full frames during the Canon DSLR era. But the 5D is the next step up from that, and then you have the 1D series, which was Canon's flagship. Here we have a Canon R100. Used, you can find these anywhere between 350 to 425, 450 bucks. New, they go for like 500, 550, something like that for just the body alone. This is the only mirrorless camera that we have here. Mirrorless basically means that there is no mirror between the lens and the sensor, and instead of optically seeing what is visible through the lens, you see electronically what is happening through the camera. You know, APS-C, or sorry, mirrorless for me is kind of a loose term. That's a tangent for a completely different video that I do plan on making at some point. But, you know, if you can't afford a mirrorless camera, do not feel bad about it. You know, if you're looking for something in this price range, there is absolutely nothing wrong with going with a DSLR. This one is 24 megapixels. And yeah, that's it for the megapixels. That's it for the price ranges of these. Let's go ahead and go into the camera mounts. Getting into the camera mounts here, these two are Canon EF and EFS compatible. This one is Canon EF compatible, and this one is Canon RF compatible. We'll go over these two first. APS-Cs are interesting because it gives you the ability to use 2 different types of lenses. In this case, it is EF, which is meant for full frame cameras, and EFS lenses, which is meant for crop censored cameras. The EFS lenses are typically on the cheaper side, even if they are decent lenses. They are, you know, they've been able to be made more cheaply because they don't have to cover a full sensor. So if you're looking to have a budget setup entirely, I would recommend an APS-C sensored camera because the lenses typically are cheaper than their full frame counterparts. This being said, you can also get full frame lenses for these, and they will have a 1.6x crop factor. So let's say you have a Canon 50mm prime lens, and it's meant for a full frame camera, but you put it on one of these. 50mm times 1.6 equals 80mm, so it will effectively magnify the millimeter of that lens times 1.6. And this does give you some advantages when you are doing something with telephoto, for example. You know, it could turn a 300mm lens into a 480mm lens because of that magnification from the crop factor. Moving over to up here, we have the 5D's full frame sensor. Now, this is meant for the EF mount, and when it comes to this, you can really only put EF glass on it. EF glass, or an EF lens, is something that's designed to cover the entire 35mm sensor. It is possible to put some EFS lenses onto a full frame sensor like this. However, I would highly recommend against it. The Canon EFS standard makes that impossible, and if you are able to somehow get it on, the mirror will slap against the back of the lens. For the third-party lenses like Tamron and Sigma, where they use a standard EF mount, but it's still only designed to work on an APS-C camera, you can put it on there and it'll take photos, but you will have major vignetting, which basically means that around the image, there will be a lot of blackness, because the lens physically cannot cover the entire sensor. So with something like this 5D, here you have to get a full frame lens to go with your full frame censored camera, and that can add a lot of cost. So just keep that in mind if you go looking for full frame. The advantages of full frame is it lets a lot more light in, and it really helps with low light performance. Moving over to this camera here, this uses a Canon RF mount. Now, the Canon RF mount is the modern standard for Canon lenses. Now, this does not mean you are necessarily locked into the Canon RF system. The RF lenses are modern, but they are also a lot more expensive. And you also still have to think about the crop factor, because there are RF and RFS lenses as well. The RFS is for the crop sensor cameras specifically, but RF lenses also work on this. Now, there is another way. This here is an RF to EF adapter, and this goes on like so. If I can find it, there we go, like so. Twist that on, and now, just like these other cameras, you are able to now put EFS and EF glass onto this camera with this adapter. These adapters range anywhere from $50 to $100. So if you want to use the used EF lens catalog, just keep that in mind, that there might be some added costs to your base purchase if you want to use the same lenses as the rest of these cameras. Now, another question you may be having is there a major difference between 18 megapixels, 20 megapixels, 22 megapixels, and 24 megapixels? And if I am being honest with you, there is not a crazy difference. No. You might notice something a difference when you're looking at an 18 megapixel image versus a 24 megapixel image, as that is a 6 megapixel difference, but also at the same time it's only a 6 megapixel difference. Now, if I were to recommend a camera of some sort, I'd say look for 20 megapixels or more, but there's nothing wrong with backing down 2 megapixels to 18 or something like that. You know, the best camera you can get is the best camera that you can afford and have fun with and enjoy taking photos. Now, let's talk about the continuous shooting modes of these individual cameras. This one here can shoot at 5 FPS. This one here can shoot at 10 FPS, so that's double the amount of pictures you can take within a second. This one here can take 6.5 frames per second, and then this one here can take 6 frames per second. So what does this mean? Well, it means that each one of these cameras will take their maximum, pictures per second before they hit the buffer. What is a buffer? A buffer is how much information can be thrown into the camera before it is no longer able to write to the card fast enough to continue taking the photos. So at some point, if you're holding down the trigger on all these, yes, they will take photos at their different FPS ranges, but it also depends on how big that buffer is and how fast you're able to move those images from the camera itself to your storage. Talking about storage here, let's go ahead and get into that. The t5i here has a single SD card slot. I want to say it's capable of 75 megabytes per second write speed. I want to say that's correct. I can't quite remember for this one. The r100 here has a single SD card slot. It is capable. This one is for a fact capable of writing 75 megabytes per second. The 7D here is able to individually write 104 megabytes per second to the SD card and then 160 megabytes per second to the compact flash card. Just be aware that is individually. If you have two cards in here, it's going to default to the slowest card. So if you have an SD card in this slot and a CF card in this one, the camera will write to them even if it's at the same time or if it's separate. It'll write to them at 104 megabytes per second. The 5D Mark III here is kind of the same, but not. The compact flash is able to write at 104 megabytes per second. The SD card is only able to write at 20 megabytes per second. So I would recommend against using the SD card slot, if I'm being honest, because if you have the SD card in there and the compact flash and you write into both of them, it's going to write to both of them at 20 megabytes per second, which renders the advantage of the speed of the compact flash kind of irrelevant. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Yeah. As far as recording goes, the T5i here can do 1080p at 30 FPS. I want to say the autofocus is continuous. I could be wrong about that. The 7D here can do 1080p at 60 FPS, one-shot autofocus. So it will focus and then it won't move again until you reset the recording. If you set it to 1080p 30 FPS, it will do continuous autofocus. The 5D here can do 1080p 30 FPS one shot. So again, once it's focused, it will not autofocus again until you restart the video. For both of these cases, for both of these cases, you can also throw it into manual focus mode and move that focusing ring yourself. And then here, this camera can shoot up to 4K at 24 FPS cropped. If I'm being fully honest with you, I never use it. It never looks good. I use this one for 1080p, 60 FPS continuous autofocus recording. That is my favorite thing to do with this camera. That is what I use it for. I'd say that this one is definitely the best for video. Weather sealing. These two cameras are weather sealed. So we can see here we have the beefy, rugged look of these cameras. Some of them have battle scars to go with that. And these things are just absolute tanks. And ergonomics wise, I love them. They're great. I love these weather sealed Canon DSLRs. These weather sealed DSLRs also have this screen up top, if that is something that interests you. They also have 3 custom settings modes, C1, C2, C3. So you can switch between these, all with different custom settings on them, you know, right on the spot depending on what you're shooting. Again, here, have the screen here, and then 3 custom settings modes. You know, the single digit D series, these are meant to be Canon's workhorses, right? Okay, so they try to give you as many features as they can for the technology that they had at the time. The t5i, if we get into the knob here, it gives you a bunch of different settings. So this one's portrait, landscape, detail, wildlife, something like that, I want to say, and then sports mode. Now you can also put it in program mode and then set up a bunch of settings like I have for this one. Just note you only have that one. You can't swap between 3 different settings like you can with these two. And then this one is kind of less actually. You have program mode and then you have auto. So what would I recommend for these cameras? If you have $300 to spend on a camera and you're trying to be mindful of how much money you're spending on lenses, go with the t5i. It has that APS-C sensor, so the lenses are going to be a little bit cheaper. It runs on SD cards. You can get those. You can get decent ones cheaply. It has the flip out screen. You know, you can put both EFS and EF lenses onto this thing. It gives you a bunch of different predetermined modes as well as that program mode. And then you can also do some video with it as well. You know, if you're looking for something that just is okay all around, go with the t5i. If you want something more modern, right, okay, and you're willing to spend the extra money for a modern used camera or new camera, then go with the r100. It has the RF mount, so you can either get an adapter and use the older EF glass, or you can get more modern RF glass and start from there. The EVF is decent, right, okay. The screen does not flip out or anything like that, but you can get the R50 instead, which is more or less just an upgraded R100. The R100 is definitely meant to be the budget option in Canon's current R series lineup. It's also probably the best camera here for video. There's an argument to be made that the 5D is better for video because it is full frame, but I use it for pictures. This is what I use for video. So if you want something modern with 2 different lens systems, go with the R100. The 7D, I would recommend, or the 7D Mark II, I would recommend if you are shooting something that's fast, if you're shooting fast wildlife or you're doing bird photography, if you're shooting trains that are moving at a decent rate of speed, if you're shooting cars that are moving at a decent rate of speed, right? Okay. 10 FPS is a lot. You know, it's nothing compared to the modern mirrorless cameras that cost thousands of dollars, but 10 FPS for $400, $350, it's a good deal, right? Pair this up with a decent used zoom lens, right? Okay, like I said, if you get a 70 to 300 millimeter with the 1.6 times crop factor, that's something along the lines of 100 and something millimeters to 480 millimeters, right? Okay. If you're shooting something far away and you need to shoot fast or something, get the 70 Mark II. I do really like this camera because it's more so meant for sports or something like that, or anything that's moving fast. It gives you the weather sealing, it gives you the screen up top here, it gives you 3 different custom modes. If you're looking for a camera to really learn on that is also a workhorse, get the 70 Mark II. And like I said, you can go with full frame lenses or the APS-C lenses. Now, if you are looking for something that you can do some professional work with, you're looking for something that can do low light stuff, you know, you're looking for something that will last for a while. It'll be more expensive in the long term, but the 5D Mark III is fairly decent for that. For a long period of time, this was a wedding photographer's dream. This was a wedding photographer's preferred camera for a few years because of the capabilities of this thing. And if you're willing to eat the cost of full frame lenses and such, this camera does produce beautiful pictures. So yeah, that's kind of it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Go ahead and ask those questions. I will do my best to answer them. Hope you guys enjoyed, hope you guys learned something, and hope you guys feel a little bit better about that camera you've been looking at on eBay. We will see you in the next one. Like and subscribe. Have a good one.